Yo, welcome back to Infant Investors, the home for all new and non-investors. I'm Curtis, and today we've got another Simply Wall Street Journal for you, and I'm going to be talking about average dividend yields. Look, in my most recent portfolio update, I mentioned that this past week that's just gone, a few ex-dividend dates has passed for me. In this next week to come, there's a lot more ex-dividend dates that's going to pass, and a lot of those stocks will be paying out their next round of dividends in September. So I think this is an opportune time just to remind yourself about which stocks are paying a good dividend, what is the current yield, the calculating of the yield, so forth, whether it's from an annual basis or from an interim standpoint, which I'm going to do today, and making sure that if you do overfund to try and get a bit more money in the next dividend payment, you are focusing on the ones that are going to give you the best dividend return. So if you like, please comment, please subscribe. I'm on a mission to get to 2,500 subscribers and get the world of investing out to more people in a clear, simple and transparent manner. But first, let's talk about average dividend yield. So you guys know in the Simply Wall Street portfolio series, I take apart a bit of my portfolio and I sort of hone in on something a bit more specific. So episode 1 talked about debt, dividends, virgin money, ETFs and more. That was a bit of a broad episode, to be honest. Episode 2, we talked about how to rebalance your portfolio, finding the stocks that you have allocated some money towards and the stocks that are giving you the best ROI, and making sure you rebalance to get the more out of your money. Number 3, we talked about investing like an institution, just to understand how much of your the stocks that you're investing in, what percentage of investors are institutional versus retail investors, because we know that they're the ones that are likely to affect the share price and also indicate whether it's a good investment or not. Episode 4, we talked about beating the market and how to do that. And then episode 5, we talked about coping with a market crash. So please go and check those episodes. There's a lot of information in there that should help you guys become better investors if you haven't already done so. But today, let's talk about average dividend yield. So I'm going to work with the new Simply Wall Street layout, which is really, really nice. I've had a little play with it. I still need to have a bit more of a play with it, but it's actually really, really nice, and they actually give information in a really, really clear way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll down to section 10, which is all about dividends. And what you can see in this section is that it tells me the average annual dividend and top payers. Currently, my average annual dividend is at 6.26%, which I think is a pretty decent dividend annual return. Considering as well, my main priority focus has never been dividends. It's always been capital gain appreciation over the long term. Dividends was sort of a byproduct of being a value investor. However, the fact that I've not been primarily focused on dividends and I'm at 6.26%, I think it's pretty decent. But if you guys go on your Simply Wall Streets, or if you guys calculate it manually yourself, let me know what your average annual dividend yield is. I'll be interested to see if I'm like at the bottom and everyone else is sitting at 15% or something. Then I'm going to have some work I need to do. Currently, the equivalent of that is £818 per year. So at this current stage, I will be expecting £818 at the end and the turn of the year. But obviously I continually invest. I've got a round of investing coming next week, which is just a small interim round again, for the purpose of dividends as well. And then obviously I'll have more monthly rounds for the dividends that are coming in later on in the year as well. So that amount will increase. However, the yield might drop because the yield is in relation to the share price. So typically if the share price drops, the yield will go higher. If the share price increases, then the yield will go a bit lower. However, the volume will stay the same. And you know what? Check out my dividends video and I've explained all of that to the nth degree. So obviously I won't go into that today. But in 10.1, it gives you the list of all of my dividends and the highest yield. So you can see Taylor Wimpey, which I did that video, being the special dividend alert. And Taylor Wimpey is currently an annual yield of 12.4%, contributing £141. So even if the capital gains for Taylor Wimpey isn't that great, it's kind of paid itself back from a dividend standpoint. And then as we go down the list, Imperial Brands, Aviva, Barrett, Legal and General, Lloyds Banking Group, Vodafone Group, Barclays Renewables, Verizon, Chevron, Sentiment, CYBG, and JP Morgan Markets Investment Trust. Now, you guys would have noticed I have got more stocks than the ones that are listed here. However, as you may have also noticed, they don't pay a dividend. So Things like Facebook, First Solar, I talk about often, they don't pay a dividend, so obviously you will not see that listed here. Also, my iShares IUSA, it does pay a dividend, but it is quite small. For some reason, Simply Wall Street isn't listing that there, and I think there's one or two more that might not be included into this list. But what it does tell you very, very clearly is what your average annual dividend yield. And for those of you guys that are dividend investors, I think this is a really, really important part of Simply Wall Street, and one of the things that you guys should be focusing on as much as possible, trying to increase your average annual dividend yield. Now, there's one way you can't increase it, which is the relationship to the share price. You have no influence of the share price, so you can't, increase it by the fact that if the share price drops, the yield goes higher. You can't do nothing about that, but you can increase it by finding stocks that are higher than your current average dividend yield, and that's what I think you guys should be focusing on. So if you are a dividend investor, and let's say, look, my average annual dividend yield is 6.2%. So when I go down the list, I see that everything from Lloyd's upwards is above my average annual dividend yield. So when I start searching for a brand new stock, I'm going to be trying to look for a stock that's 6.5% or upwards in order to raise the average annual dividend yield. And I might, depending on what's going on with some of the other stocks, sell some stocks that are below the average annual dividend yield. And if I keep on repeating that process, that might be a really, really strong way to increase your average annual dividend yield, which is within your current control. So an example of what I could do is say AT&T, which I know the ticker symbol is T. I'm going to search that, and then I will see all of the information. And if I scroll down to dividend, can I click? Yeah, boom. The expected dividend yield for AT&T is 6.04. So that's just below my average annual dividend yield. However, if I was to add AT&T to my portfolio, and then not only add AT&T to my portfolio, does that work? No, that back button does not work. Let's see if it works this time. Yes. If I added AT&T to my portfolio, but then let's say, for example, I got rid of, I don't know, Barclays, then that should increase my average annual dividend yield. And I think for those of you guys that are dividend investors, this is something you should be thinking about. I've told you guys that with my next, when I get either Robinhood or Evervest, and obviously there's a lot more stocks that's going to be open to me, I am going to do a new portfolio that's purposely only dedicated to being a dividend investor. So I'm going to still continue to have my value stroke growth portfolio, as I believe in that for the long term, but I'm also going to have a dividend portfolio, and these are going to be some of the things that I know that I'm going to do. So I haven't done it yet, and I won't do it till 2020, but you guys are getting into my mind and getting ahead of the game. You guys can go ahead and start thinking like this if you feel like it's going to be beneficial for you. But I think obviously trying to improve your average annual dividend yield is only going to bode well for you in the future. Now you still have to look at the other things like cover, payout ratio, etc., which I've covered off in the dividends video, which I'll leave the link in the description. So don't forget to look at those factors, because those factors are important. But also, you are trying to get an average annual dividend yield, and it doesn't mean that you have to stick with the stock longer than a year. Once you've received that average annual dividend yield for that year, maybe get rid of the stock and get something else. Like, you don't have to stick with it for the long term, but that's something, we'll talk about a lot more in the future. In the next current round, what I've decided to do, so I looked at my current stocks on my spreadsheet, and you guys already have this in the spreadsheet link that I've given to you in multiple videos, and I looked at what stocks are paying me a dividend in September and what stocks are paying me a dividend in November. So now everything in yellow is paying me in September, and everything besides the two that I can't affect the ex-dividend date because those ex-dividend dates have passed, but they're also paying me September, and everything in this kind of orange tan color is paying me a dividend around the November mark, but they're currently forecasted, so we don't know the exact dividend amount per share. But for me, I just wanted a clear way to kind of see that, look, these are all of the dividend payments that I'm now going to receive towards the end of the year, and the ones in yellow I can affect and I can change and I can improve it for September. I can also do that for the ones in orange. However, I don't know what the yield is, so I'm going to wait, because obviously I don't want to be putting too much money into a stock that's not going to give me the best yield. And the ones here in grey, obviously I've already closed the ex-dividend date. I've already missed that, so I can't affect the next dividend payment for those ones. So From cell 21 down to cell 56, what I did is for yellow, I calculated what my return currently is going to be and what my interim yield. So what I mean by interim yield is the dividend yield for this specific round, not the dividend yield annually, but the current dividend yield for that month. And the way I've calculated it is the same way that's currently in the spreadsheet. The number of shares that you've got, the current share price that is there, and then that tells you the value. Then obviously the dividend per share, which you guys can get from Dividend Max, and I've showed you how to get that information. So if we take Barclays as an example, you search Barclays Dividend Max, you click on the first link, you will then land on this. I think I've got something like 410 Barclays shares. You calculate the payment. It tells me that my Barclays payment will be £12.30. So you don't have to do the calculations, but I like to always do the calculations so I know what levers to pull and how to influence it. So that shows it's £12.30. But what it also tells you is that it went X 3 days ago, which then means I can't do nothing about that. I will get paid within the month, but I can't improve that dividend payment. And it's going to give me 3p per current share. So if I go back to my current spreadsheet, what you'll see in the Barclays tab, which is this one here, 410 shares in Barclays. The current share price is 1.43. That means the value that I've added is £586.30. The dividend per share is 3p, so 0.03, because 1 would be a pound. So obviously 0.90 would be 90p, so 0.03 would be 3p. That shows you my dividend payment is £12.30. And as you can see, these are all formulas that have been calculated. So everything in purple just flows through nicely. I don't have to do anything but enter the bits in white. And then that shows that my dividend percentage for Barclays is 2.1%, sorry. So that is just the calculations to let me know that this is going to be my Barclays dividend yield for this specific round of dividends. And I've basically done that for all of the stocks that are going to pay me in September. So all of the stocks in yellow, as you can see. And then I've listed. So as you can see, that for here is 2.45%, which I believe is Lloyd's, yep. And then next is Legal and General and Aviva. You can see, so Legal and General will be paying me 2.07, Aviva will be paying me 2.48%, and so forth and so forth. So you know what I'm going to do just to make this much nicer and easier is I'm going to hide, just for the time being, everything up until here. I'm going to hide that, high columns BS, because it is BS. So just so you can see that. And yeah, renewables infrastructure, Trig, a lot of you guys I know have invested in Trig. The next dividend round is going to give me 1.3% as a percentage. Chevron 0.97%. Imperial Brands 1.49%. Centamin 2.82%. S&P 500 about 0.42%, and that is it, because I told you it goes up to cell 56 for my September payment. So from S&P 500 up into Barclays, my interim yield is going to be 1.79%, and my return is going to be £150.46p. So I can expect from free trade £150.46p. And what I do is I know the dates that they're meant to be landing. We know that free trade pay anything up to 2 to 3 working days from the time that you have got your pay date. So if your pay date's on the 7th, it can pay you up until the 10th potentially, if that doesn't fall on a weekend. So it's based off working days, and I will make sure that obviously all of those dividends come in, and obviously the amount is correct. And if it's not correct, then obviously go to customer service and give them a lovely talking to. But this is just something that I think is very, very good practice for all of you guys to get into. One, I think you guys should always be on top of the money that's coming into you, however big or however small. If you didn't get paid the correct salary from work, you would make sure that you would let them know that, look, I didn't get the right money. Is it to do with my tax code? Is it to do with the calculation of days? What is it? Are you just incompetent? Pay me my money. So I don't think it should be any different in this scenario. And because obviously a lot of you guys are going to be having stocks paying out their interim dividend amounts in September, it feels like the right time to do this. You don't have to do this every month, but maybe doing this when there's an interim, when there's a final, maybe when there's a special, 3 times a year. It shouldn't be that exhaustive. It took me about 20 minutes just to get all of this data inside the spreadsheet and make sure I'm clear on how much money I'm going to get and what my average interim yield. Now, those stocks that we just mentioned currently is going to pay me 150. Only Barclays and Lloyds I can't affect. However, from Legal in General down to S&P 500, I can still add more money and make sure that I get a stronger dividend payment, which I'm planning to do a little bit next week. And by the looks of this, it's telling me that Sentiment is one I should be adding more money to from a dividend standpoint, and Aviva is another one I should be adding money to, and also Legal and General. Those are the ones that are currently paying above 2%. So those look like the strongest options in order to invest. Now, Sentiment is going to be pretty tricky just because capital gains wise it's gone up so high. It's at such a high price now that I don't know whether I will put a lot of money into Sentiment just because it's quite high, but maybe it'll continue to go higher. I mentioned in my forecast of where Sentiment is going to go in between the £1.79 a share all the way up to about 2.43 pence a share. So potentially I could still add a bit more money into Sentiment, but the likeliness is I'll add a bit more into Legal and General and Aviva, or maybe I might be even. So I haven't calculated how much I'm going to add to each of those, and obviously what the split or the allocation is going to be. But I do know that for me personally, I would rather put into the highest dividend percentage payers when I'm talking about overfunding. And so Legal, General, Aviva, and probably Sentiment is the ones I'm going to add a little bit more to, and that will obviously then increase the volume, the amount of money that I will receive in September. So that will be September effectively taken care of, and then the last remaining stocks will be Taylor Wimpey, Verizon, Barrett, and emerging markets, and they will be paying for November, around the November time. And obviously, you know, we can work out what I'm going to do in that situation, and I anticipate Taylor Wimpey and Barrett will be the ones that will pay the highest dividend percentage. That's my personal forecast, but that data has not been presented yet, so I don't have the exact dividend per share. Currently it's in forecast mode, and it probably won't be up until from anything from say 3 weeks to 1 week before will it actually declare it and give you the exact dividend percentage. So yeah, I know obviously I whizzed through this exceptionally quickly. It's only because I've got a lot of videos on dividends and I didn't want to kind of feel like I'm regurgitating, but I wanted to make sure that you guys, you know, did look at this and did try and do this for yourself, so you guys know what your average dividend yield is, not only on an annual basis that you can see in Simply Wall Street, but also looking at it from an interim standpoint as well, because that means then you can try and improve your overall annual dividend yield anyway. So yeah, the three big key takeaways from this is try and calculate your next average dividend yield for your next interim set of investments, number one. Number two, know what your average dividend yield is for your all of your stocks over the course of the year, and focus on the ones that's going to give you the best yield. Maybe selling ones that aren't so great, maybe buying ones that have that are higher than your current average, and then also knowing which ones are coming up in your next set, so that you can kind of plan how much money you're going to allocate towards that going forward in the future. Now you guys already have access to this sheet. This is my own personal one, but obviously the information is in the Google sheet that I put in the other link, so I'll make sure that's in the description. Hopefully you found this useful. If you did, useful? Hopefully you found this useful. If you did, please like, please comment, please subscribe. I cannot speak today. Please subscribe. Maybe I'm just excited because Man United is playing Chelsea, and you know, I'm just hoping for a good result. I'm not even going to tell you who I support just in case I get cussed in the comments, but I'm hoping for a good result. So please like, please comment, please subscribe, and I will be back with another investment video. This week we've got loads of videos to come. I've got literally a list of videos I want to kind of produce for you at the current moment. So, you know, I wouldn't say there's going to be daily uploads, but there's definitely going to be very, very frequent uploads, maybe at least 4 or 5 this week. So there's a lot to look forward to. So yeah, please like, please comment, please subscribe, share the video, and I will catch you next time with another investment video. Take care, have a great weekend, enjoy the match. Come on, United! I gave it away. Peace. Happy investing.